Hey guys, so today we're going to be drawing a perspective sunset. So we are going to be drawing a sunset, and to help show that perspective, we're going to be adding some telephone poles that disappear into the distance. And despite this being technically a landscape, the first thing we need to do is we need to use our pincher fingers, and we need to grab our paper by holding two fingers flat against our iPad, and we need to rotate it into portrait orientation. That's when you hold your paper upside down. I always find it's a little bit easier to start working with perspective when you're using this orientation because you don't have so much perspective to draw, if that makes any sense. We only have to disappear it across a page going its narrowest way. So make sure that you have your page going up and down or in portrait orientation. The next thing I want you to do before you get started drawing is I want you to be sure that your double puck is out so that you have easy access to all of your colors. If that's not out, don't forget this little round circle down here at the bottom brings up all of our shortcuts, and our double puck is one of those shortcuts. Once you have your paper all ready to go, we're actually going to start by using the fill tool. So I'm going to go ahead up here to my top toolbar, and I'm going to look for that paint can. When I click on the paint can, I notice I have lots of different fill options: solid, radial, and today we're going to be using the middle fill option, the one we haven't used yet. This is called linear fill. It's going to fill things in stripes of color. I also always want to make sure that the tolerance is about halfway from one side to the other. It's always a good starting point. And then if I think back to when we were doing our holiday wreaths, I remember that I can't adjust any of my fill settings when I'm using these fun fills until after I've added color to the page. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to tap my page. Now, when you tap your canvas, if you notice that your fill is going this way or those colors are running vertically, it's very easy to switch them so that they're horizontal. You're going to grab the dot on one end and move it to the top middle of your canvas, and the dot on the other end and move it to the bottom middle. Now you can see that we've changed those stripes of color from being vertical to horizontal. Now I'm ready to go ahead and assign their colors. I'm going to start by selecting the bottom dot. I know that it's selected because it has a blue highlight around it. Now I can go right to my double puck and I can pull up my first color. And I think I'm going to make it blue down here at the bottom. So it's like it's getting a little bit darker out. There's still a little bit of blue sky. I'll click in the gray area to make the settings box disappear so I can see what my work looks like. And then I'll move up to the middle dot. Again, I know I'm working on this dot because it's selected with the blue highlight. Then I'll come over here to my double puck and I'll pick my next color. Maybe for my next color, I'll go ahead and I'll go with a nice light yellow. Then I'll finally select that last dot and go ahead and choose my final color. So maybe I'll have it go right into that nice orange color. Now the fun thing about this tool is you can also erase how much or how little of each color you have simply by moving this dot. So if I want less yellow, I can just make these dots a little bit closer to the yellow, or if I want more orange, I can add some of that. Once you're happy with how your colors are arranged, now you need to turn off the paint bucket. It's one of those tools that doesn't just automatically turn off. So I'm going to go ahead and click it again, and that's going to deselect my paint bucket and make my first layer show up as my background. Now, I'm getting ready to draw, but if I erase when I draw, I don't want it to erase any of these colors. So I'm going to come over here to my layer panel on the right-hand side, and I'm going to hit the plus sign. This is going to give me a new layer to draw on. Also, before I begin drawing, I want to lay out a perspective guide. And the nice thing about Autodesk is it has perspective guides built right in. So if you look at that top toolbar, you're going to see one that kind of looks like a building with a grid on it. When you click on that, that's going to pull up lots of different perspective guides, which can be very confusing at first. But here's all you need to know. This one is 1-point perspective, this one is 2-point perspective, and this one is 3-point perspective. These two middle tools allow us to customize grids to our need, so we're going to stay away from those. Today, you only need to have selected the 1-point perspective tool. As you look down at the end, there's 3 extra icons. Let me tell you a little bit about these. This magnet tool works the same as our predictive stroke tool. So we want to be sure that it does not have this line in it, because we do want all of our perspective lines to be perfect and straight and snap into place. So go ahead and make sure that this will snap to vanishing points by having your magnet unlocked. Also, you want to have your lock unlocked for now because we're going to need to adjust where these vanishing lines go. But once we set our vanishing lines, we can hold them in place by locking them. We can also make them visible or invisible using this eye in the same way that we use it when we're using them on our layers. So now I'm ready to adjust my grid. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the blue dot in the middle. This blue dot should be about 1/3 of the way up your canvas on the right-hand side. We never want things about halfway, so 1/3 is a good starting spot. Then we want to be sure that we have our horizon line running horizontally. Now the horizon line is a scooch thicker than the vanishing lines, but it's really hard to tell which one it is. So they give you a little clue by putting a white dot on one. It's this line right here. So you can see when I hold my stylus or my finger on that white dot, I can rotate it around that central point. So I just want to make sure mine is nice and horizontal. Then I want to be sure that my vanishing lines cover my entire paper. So I can use these green dots to be sure that they fit. Once I have vanishing lines and my horizon line and my vanishing point all assigned to the correct spot on my image, now I'm ready to go ahead and lock that grid. If that lock was closed, I wouldn't have been able to move any of these. So now I'm going to go ahead and I've locked my perspective grid into place. Now I'm ready to draw. So I'm going to pull out my favorite drawing tool. And you guys know by now that for me, that's the inking pen. So I've got my inking pen out and I'm going to set it to a pretty thick size, somewhere between 8 and 9 for my first set of lines. Also, we're going to be doing this in silhouette. So we want our opacity all the way up at 100 because we remember from last time that silhouettes are dark shapes. I'm going to tap in the gray area to get rid of that box and then I'm ready to start drawing. And the first thing I'm going to draw is the horizon line. So right where that blue horizon line is, I'm going to pull my pen right across the page and it's going to snap a perfect vertical line. Now, I am going to work within my first set of vanishing lines and my horizon. That means I don't need to see my whole page. And I'm going to use my pincher fingers to zoom in. Now, you can see the vanishing line right here, and you can see the horizon line here. Using that same thick line, I'm going to draw 2 telephone poles that go from my first vanishing line down to my horizon line. 1, 2. As I work my way across the page, because things are beginning to get further away, not only are they going to be smaller, but they're also going to be thinner. So I'm going to take this little tab here and I'm going to pull it down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a couple more lines. I'm not worried if they go below the horizon line. I want to be pretty precise on this top line here, but below the horizon line does not matter. Then I'm going to make it smaller one more time. I want to be sure I don't make it too small. If it's too small all the way down, you actually can't see it. But I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller, and I'm going to finish out by adding any horizon lines that I have room for. Once I'm done adding the vertical telephone poles, now I'm ready to add their horizontal tops. And I'm going to stay right here in my perspective grid because it's going to also snap them to be parallel or horizontal like my horizon line. So I'm going to zoom in because I'm doing my smallest ones first. I still have that really skinny line on. And I'm going to come right across the top, just a hair below the top of that line. So a little bit sticks up so it looks like a real telephone pole, and I'm going to make a small, short, horizontal line. I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of my skinniest telephone poles. When I get up to my next size, I'm going to go ahead and size it up. And again, I'm going to draw horizontal, leaving just a little bit of the top popped out. I'll go ahead and complete these. And again, I'm watching that size to make sure as my line gets thicker, so does that line at the top. So I need to make it just a little bit thicker here. And then I can go ahead, remembering to leave a little bit of that telephone pole popping out at the top. And I can make those cross sections here. Now, when I zoom back out, you can already begin to see that idea of perspective happening as everything is disappearing along that horizon line and along that vanishing line to that single point. But now I'm all done with my perspective. So just like our fill tool, I need to turn this off before I do the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and click that grid again. However, I still want that snap effect to happen. So I am going to come across and I am going to select my predictive stroke tool. I'm going to put it at about 4 this time. I don't want to make straight lines anymore. I want them to be curves, but I want them to be nice, smooth curves. Then I'm going to bring my size way, way back down because the next thing we're going to add are the wires on our telephone poles. So I know a nice skinny line. And I'm going to zoom in so I can see my telephone poles. And I'm going to start on the right-hand side, and I'm going to make a curve that goes to the right-hand side of each and every pole I drew. You see, that snap effect really snaps them into shape. Each telephone pole has 2 wires. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to repeat the process with the other side. Once I have all of my telephone wires done, now I can zoom back out and I can make a few finishing touches. The first finishing touch that I want to add is I want to fill this bottom area with solid black. So I'm going to come up here to my fill tool. I'm going to select solid fill. I'm going to be sure my color is on black and I'm going to fill the bottom. That's why it didn't matter if the bottom of our telephone poles went below the horizon line. I'll deselect my fill tool, and now I'm going to zoom into an open spot in my drawing. And here we are going to do the classic bird curve. So for my closest bird, I'm going to make my size a little bit bigger, and I'm going to do the 2 bumps. I'm going to make the size a little smaller and make my bird a little smaller. Maybe I'll add 2 of these. And then I'm going to bring my size down as little as I can. And then maybe add 1 or 2 more birds in the distance. And it doesn't matter if you're in 1st grade or in 80th grade, they still look like birds. The final finishing touch is to give the sky just a little bit of clouds. And for my clouds, I'm actually going to go back from my drawing layer onto my background layer. To do that, I see that the layer I've been drawing on is selected in blue. I'm simply going to tap on that layer with all the color, and now I can see my background is selected in blue. This is going to make it easier for me to draw clouds that automatically go behind my telephone poles. For my clouds, I'm going to look for my salty watercolor brush. When you're looking in your library, it's going to be part of your artist collection right down here. And you can notice because all of your brushes are brown. Once you have your salty watercolor brush selected, you want to be sure that you've arranged the size so it's not too big or not too small, and that your flow and your strength are down in the 30% range. Then we're going to select white to draw our clouds. With your salty watercolor brush, you can gently tap on your paper to create and layer these perfect cloud shapes. And the nice thing is that because we're working with layers, you see I can go right behind that telephone pole and it doesn't disappear. It literally puts the cloud behind the telephone pole. So now we have this beautiful piece of artwork that has a whole lot of depth using the great tools that we have right here in our Autodesk sketchbook. I hope you guys enjoyed.